The Gospel of John is a gospel rich in symbolism. And one of the most prominent symbolic motifs is the use of light and darkness to signify belief and unbelief, faith and lack of or resistance to faith. And one thing I love about this particular story is how it takes us beyond that simplistic duality and invites us into the both and of the Spirit of God, where light and darkness commingle, and there are things to discover and be led by within them. Nicodemus, who is a prominent leader of the Pharisees, who were the authorities of the time of the law, God's law, and how people should live it out. And there were a lot of things that they were pretty certain about, pretty black and white about. They were not known for their creative interpretation or creativity in general, but represented those whose faith was focused on obedience to God in very concrete forms. They were faithful people, and they were scholars, and they held fast to traditions, which has a great comfort to many. It is helpful to have a set of rules and to know where you stand and to have certainty, and so often we crave that. But Jesus pushed the boundaries of every rule and every tradition and every sense of certainty. And he did so in an effort to help people really know in their bones and the depths of their spirits the uncontainable, radical, abundant love of God. And that's why they were often wary of or hostile with him. But not all the Pharisees felt that way. And though they were uncomfortable with how he colored outside the lines, they could still see God's power in him. A few were curious, and one, Nicodemus, was actually compelled by that curiosity to seek Jesus out. But it was risky to do so. So Nicodemus sought Jesus out at night, in the quiet and the dark and the private. I was particularly struck by that act of humility and curiosity from Nicodemus, a man of clerical authority, learning, and certainty. He sought out this itinerant preacher, this person that gave a radical and compelling but different message. And he even addressed him as rabbi, because he knew Jesus was a man of God and knowledge and gifts. And despite their differences, he wanted to learn from Jesus. What an example that we need to witness to and emulate these days, where differences and certainty have created deep division. How many of you are or were teachers? Yes, a few of you. Or have taught in your lives in work or some capacity. Certainly all of you who are parents have spent a lot of time teaching. Ever have a student or a child or a coworker, someone you're trying to explain something to, come to your class or come to you with questions but not really being open to learning? They approach you, but they seem sure in their own knowledge and ability and certain that they know how to do something or they know about something better than you, or certainly without your instruction. Ever have that experience? Most parents probably have. Most teachers I know have. Many of us have. And maybe we've been on the other side of it too, being very certain in our own knowledge. Teaching these folks that know what they know and they're not going to take much more in is a little confounding, and their minds are a little closed to anything different, and trying to convey something becomes sometimes futile. But sometimes it's not the person that's so convinced of their knowledge that they're right, but they just have a particular experience, and they can't imagine something different. And I think maybe Nicodemus is in this category. And we all can be so busy thinking that we know how things work because we've experienced them and we've done them, and we think we know. We have a sense of what the right way is, and we can't hear some sort of new or different way. Or it just doesn't make sense because we don't have the framework to think of it. And that's a whole lot like our friend Nicodemus here. He thinks he knows what Jesus is all about, who he is, and what it means to be a teacher who has come from God. And he bases this knowledge on what he knows, what he sees, and what he can make sense of. The signs, which include the dove alighting on Jesus at his baptism, his turning of water to wine at the wedding of Cana, overturning the money changer tables and cleansing the temple in his interpretation of the scripture. Nicodemus may not feel comfortable with those things, but he certainly could recognize them as sacred or holy or God-touched. Nicodemus sees these signs and at least understands that Jesus is perhaps another prophet, as of old, touched by the presence of God and given the power to do these things by God. But he misses altogether the truth that Jesus is the presence of God, and that all of the ways that Jesus manifests relationship and opens minds and invites people into transformation is the work and nature and spirit of God. Nicodemus came to Jesus in the dark and leaves still in the dark. But it's different, this leaving dark. A strange and confusing light has been shined into it, and Nicodemus walks away changed for it. For him, the change is slow. If it's at first an off-balancing, a questioning, a head-scratching, how can these things be? The dark and the light, black and white, day and night, they aren't as distinct. Born again? I'm already born. How does that work? He walks away thinking in an either-or way and is compelled to start thinking in a both-and way. He has been opened to something new. And his curiosity continues to open him. And that's why he leaves changed and wondering. And when we leave even that little bit of opening, God works through that to transform us. The echoes of Jesus saying to Nicodemus continue to work on him. They're hidden, unpredictable, surprising as the wind, reflecting God's Spirit working within him. Jesus' words, "Are you a teacher of Israel and yet do not understand these things?" These are the fundamentals, Nicodemus. These are the things you must understand first. To understand and keep understanding, you must be born from above, born from water and spirit, born anew again and again and again. What does this all mean? It isn't enough to study the teachings, to learn the rituals and ropes, to deduce conclusions from your analysis, or even have a brilliant awakening or conversion event. You have to continue to listen, continue to seek, continue to be willing to let go of the old notions and ways that keep you from understanding the truth or the extraordinary or the unimaginable, all the transforming love of God. And these are the things that are working on Nicodemus this whole time. He walks away still in the dark, but with an opening where light has shone in. And that continues to work on Nicodemus, and Nicodemus becomes an advocate for Jesus. And in the end, he becomes someone who tenderly cleans and bathes and anoints Jesus' body after crucifixion. So Nicodemus' story invites us into that opening of curiosity. And Jesus invites us and says to us, you must be willing to have your false notions and false understandings of this world, of one another, of God, of yourself, and of others. Die and be born anew into what is more life-giving, more heart-opening, more connecting. Because God calls us into what is both and, not either or, not division, but deep connection. And that is a continual rebirth. And this doesn't come easy to us. It stretches us and challenges us. It's often uncomfortable. We cling to what we know. It's natural. It's safe. We cling to what gives our universe order, to what is comfortable and familiar. And when we do, we remain in the dark. But if we let ourselves be compelled by Jesus' invitation, we can entertain even the slightest curiosity, and we are willing to set out in the dark or the dawn or the breaking light to grope around, even misguided in our own ideas, even in the dark of night. If we are willing to just take those steps, to seek, to be curious, that is all God needs to transform us. That is all God needs to help us open to the unimaginable truth of God's radical love. Even in the night, Jesus' light will be there. Though it may be an unfamiliar glow, it will illuminate the way if you are willing to follow it. And it will certainly guide us to new understanding and new light. And we are invited to step into places of discomfort, places of division and difference, with that even small measure of curiosity and openness. And that's all it takes to transform so much. And sometimes, like Nicodemus, we think we are seekers. We think we are open to listening and learning, and the truth catches us off guard. It confuses us. Maybe it even stings us or shoves us off balance. Doesn't make sense. But there is always something in it that does, or does enough to keep us asking questions if we're open to. Sometimes that strange light of truth might even bring us to our knees like it did for the Apostle Paul, because we suddenly know how true it is and how blind we've been. But be assured that God will meet us with love in it all and will change us and bless us. He will renew us and transform us so that we might be a blessing to others. So may each of us and all of us together be compelled this Lent to wonder and to seek and to dare to be curious about what needs to be reborn within us, within ourselves, within this community, within this greater world. And may we seek Jesus' light to guide us.